people in this room are going to very warmly welcome me. I know that on behalf of the British investors here, I do too. But could I just make an observation, first of all, and then ask a question as well? First of all, I speak a lot to British investors here, obviously. And one of the things that comes up repeatedly is the need for clarity on the conditions under which they have invested and indeed are considering investing. They often find that there are issues between differences between what they're told by different parts of the Tanzanian government machinery, from the TRA to IC to the land registry. And I think that they need a better understanding of really quite where they stand. So I would encourage on Tanzanian authorities to talk to established investors, to have a genuine dialogue, a critical dialogue it will be on occasions, about what needs to be done to improve this climate here. Because I think established investors are Tanzania's best ambassadors, or have the potential to be best ambassadors, to attract other foreign investors to come into the market. Just to say, that process has actually already started. Within the European Union, we've got a dialogue underway with the TRA, Tanzanian Authority, and we very warmly welcomed the start of that. And I think we're hopeful that we'll get some good results from that. So it's the kind of thing that can be done. But I'd encourage that to happen further and indeed to involve other authorities. But my main question is actually agriculture, which I know is a subject which is very dear to your heart. Agriculture is the heart of this economy. About 80% of the population employed in agriculture. And indeed, an agricultural revolution has so often been the cause of real economic growth. It's what happened in Britain way back in the 18th century. It's what happened in Vietnam. If you look at their development, it was really their industrial revolution took place on the back of the agricultural revolution. As you say, one of the keys to unlocking this is to encourage farmers to produce more. And I just wondered about control there are on agriculture. At the moment, there are a number of constraints on producing a surplus, which is that for many agricultural products, you're not actually allowed to export those products. And I just wonder how the government is looking at that and whether it will or promote full liberalisation in the agricultural sector. Thank you.
Well, improving business climate is something that we as a government, we as a people, Excellence, you probably know how much we are trying to do in that particular area. But as I said, given the background, I was also part of the bureau at one time, and I behaved almost in the same way. It was until when I joined politics, then I started seeing things differently. You see, these guys always, according to code, section and rule number, So sometimes it's so difficult. They don't seem to pick up some of these dynamic changes that are going through. But I'm at least confident that we've picked up this issue with a very serious note now. Okay, what to do in order to improve the business climate. The roadmap that I talked about is essential. Yeah. I as a Prime Minister, am the one now who keep on banging on the doors of the Chief Secretary about how far have we gone in relation to licensing, in relation to the issue, all the time, so that we to the timetable as we had agreed. We keep up that momentum. But in the meantime, I'm also aware that investors sometimes get into the banks here and there. Please, we have a lot of opportunities that we are telling some of them when they come to see us. You see, we decided to create, under the Principal Secretary's office, a committee for anything to do with the investments. Any complaint, you see, to the Chief Secretary, who is the chairman of the committee in relation to investments. Okay? We also have a role to play. At the investment center, which is under my office, we also have a structure where we receive not complaints, but areas that probably need quick solutions. Okay? Fast tracking of decisions. I'm the chairman of that committee. So every time we get something, we just sit down, make a decision, and report to the cabinet. We do this because, but I think it's because sometimes this information is not filtered to a much wider set of the private sector. That's why they don't. So we'll encourage these dialogues, like I said, with the TRA, but also with the investment center, because this is where most of the things crop up, and it's a good beginning. So since it's my, maybe I will take up that challenge and encourage people to organize some of these things every now and then with the private sector, so that they get to know what to do. Otherwise, we will end up with a lot of problems. So I think it's a very good thing you said. Second one, yeah, agriculture. Yeah. Well, as I said, there's a lot of challenges around it. Okay? Quite a good number of them. And if we dwell on them, I'm sure it will take up most of your time. But all that I would say is, I think at the moment, what we are doing is prepared, get ready, listen to what investors are going to say about agriculture in Tanzania, what they think ought to be done in order to improve agriculture in Tanzania, what are the areas that have got tremendous challenges that we must direct our efforts into, so that we can sort them out and make agriculture a good sector for investments as well. I'm afraid I cannot go straight and answer that question, because I think the best is to go around it and let's see what we shall get out of this meeting and other forums that are available, and then we can see what to do.
Actually, that's a very important point, clarity and dialogue with investors. That came up as one of the action points by the President in 2008. And it was one of the areas he sort of ticked as one that would have developed further in the coming years. So the need to talk to investors was recognized then.
Okay, agree.
At the back, one final question.
Thank you. My name is Steve Kisandu. I work for the Bank of New York Mellon in the United States. I'm just here for this conference. I've got a question. I know the Tanzanian government understands the practical steps, and you know, it's when you communicate to the international investors, there's got to be a substance. One thing the international investor is going to look at the local private sector, and to want to also look at the local business environment here. I know this is my guess. I know your administration is looking into finding a fine balance, because it's one thing to do that practical thing on the ground, and also the other thing to communicate it. So I know there's an issue of power, and how do you find a balance there? Because, you know, trying to bring in investors, you got to do something on the country. And we've had an issue of power for quite some time, and I don't know. Can you elaborate a little bit of the plan? Either a short-term plan or a strategic plan to resolve the power issue, so we can have investors here.
Well, you made reference to two things. One is power crisis, and the other, of course, is the reference you made to regard to the private sector, the local private sector in Tanzania. On the part of the local private sector in Tanzania, as I said, we have tried our best to build it up, to give it, to encourage it. You know, we know where we came from, and it was not an easy job at all. It's being a former socialist country, you jump into mixed economy, get a lot of these remains, you know, where you look at the private sector as one of these large animals that can eat you all if you're not careful. So we had to remove some of those kind of thinkings from the minds of the majority of the people, and now look at the private sector as a real partner, you know, in terms of trying to develop your country. See? It has not been an easy job, but I'm glad at least through these efforts, because the president himself decided to create that body and is the chairman of that body. So he sees the private sector, he listens to their problems, he comes up with the statements of encouragement, and as a policy now, I think the debate is no longer on the existence and the need about the private sector. It's clear that we need them, we have to work with them, because they're essential partners in the development. So to that extent, I think when you come, you can always, it's not strong yet, but at least it's comfortable, it's with us. They participate in all these things. I think what we need, when you come in, you want to get to partner with them, you can always find somebody who is probably ready to do that job together. So I think it's good so far. All that we need is to keep up the momentum. Let's not go back. Yes, we have a crisis of power supply. Okay? And of course, if you ask me, we have to look for permanent solutions rather than short-term solutions. Yeah? You see, getting a power generator the way we are now trying to do, it does not give me a lot of comfort at all. See, because at the end of it, it's a cost and a big cost to us, and it has an effect also even on the production. See? But at the moment, that's why you are seeing us talking about that, because it seems this is what probably is faster to get maybe than the other areas. But I think the medium-term plan, which I strongly believe will probably give us the answers, we are hopeful that by June, July, December this year, yeah, at least we should be able to have power that will enable us at least to provide the basics of the supply, the power supply for the country. Yeah? You're expecting, of course, to come in with 160 megawatts in the short term. Yeah? And then thereafter, of course, we're building a lot of other efforts that will give us a much wider prospect for getting power through the Kiwira, which we are now discussing with the Chinese, and many other programs that we have. So we are betting on the 1 year as a year for us where we think we can harness the opportunities that can give comfort not only to investors but to the Tanzanians as a whole. But again, this is an area where I said, now that we have the electricity law, a law that allows the private sector to participate in production of power, transmission, as well as distribution, it's an area that also private sector can come in and see what best they can do. Thanks to a few who have already embarked on this one. The wind power in Singida is a very good example. But we also have the gas that is currently producing a bit of some electricity, but hopefully it will grow in the next few months into something much bigger than what it is now. So again, the government alone may not significantly make a big impact, but coupled with the private sector initiative under PPP or even in a different form, it is still an area that we think we can get the opportunities. Immediately, we shall face a bit of some problems, but I think in about a year, we should be comfortable.
I think on that note, I'd like to end this very valuable and interesting session. Thank you very much for your time and covering a wide number of very crucial issues, from agriculture to reforms to what the government is planning to do going forward in terms of infrastructure, closer collaboration with the private sector, dialogue, ongoing dialogue. And the bottom line is the role of the private sector will have to rise if Tanzania wants to grow to 10 to 12% to create the jobs. At the same time, I think the ministers managed to get away with 2 ships from France, so it's not a bad deal. So watch this space. Thank you.